Welcome to the Varside Spurs podcast, coming to you all the way from the Varside Arms. I'm Lee, and joining me today for a pint is Simon. How are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, thanks. It's been a funny old few days, but I'm all right.
Good stuff. And our special guest today is Dan Staines. How are you, mate?
Hello, I'm all good. You all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, now the football's back on. I was a bit miserable. That last weekend was pretty shit, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, not what we expected. I think that's it's fair to say.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I got the of course, I'm not unsympathetic, but the fact is that the cricket still went ahead and the rugby still went ahead. What's that saying? Is that
Yeah, and no one gives a shit about either of those things.
No,
So,
exactly.
but I
Uh,
think, No, go on. Sorry.
So
no,
go
no,
on,
no, no,
Simon.
no, no, go on. Sorry, I thought you finished your point.
I was literally just going to say, I think I spoke to Lee about this separately, and I probably would have done maybe this upcoming weekend because there's at least a bit more prep time. If they're going to do it, then they give people more notice and stuff like that. I think that it was a bit of an emotional decision to make, and I don't think it was a very. I think if they could go back and make the decision again, they wouldn't have done it in the same way. I think is
No.
probably what I'm trying to say with that.
Yeah, because I think the other games like the cricket and the rugby, I didn't watch any of them, but from comments I'd seen, people were saying they did them really respectfully, black armbands, 2 minute silence, round of applause at the end, and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty well observed. Well, so just actually, we'll kick off on that point actually, if you don't mind. So we'll start with you, Simon. What were your thoughts on that missed game versus City? Do you actually think that's good for us? Maybe even.
No, I don't think it is. I don't like missing games. I think we've seen before where other teams, sorry, and I appreciate this is not a team level, but we've seen where other teams have missed games that we're supposed to play, how that can disadvantage them. So I think the squad have been prepared, they'll have been training, they'll have been getting themselves in the right headspace, so they'll have been going through things, prepare. And then, of course, 48 hours or before the match is due, the match is postponed. I think it kind of throws the whole schedule out of whack. And now they're like, oh, well, we had a plan in our head, which we were going to execute. And now we've got to go think about something else. And there's obviously the impact that's going to have onto the whole, footballing schedule, which then means, my honest opinion is I don't think that this weekend's games are going to go ahead. So now there are, 2 games that are been prepared for potentially. They'll probably get cancelled. And, we know that the downstream impact that's going to have on this season, considering it's compressed into 2 halves because of the World Cup break in the middle. So I agree that I agree that it was an emotional decision. I don't agree it was the one that they should have taken. Cool. I do think that, as we've seen, other sporting events carried it off stupendously well. How difficult is it to put up a graphic? So on the first whistle, we'll have 2 minutes of silence. Then there'll be another whistle. Then we'll play the national anthem. And, you can phrase things in such a way, which is if people aren't necessarily supportive, then they should just show consideration from others around them who are. And, we don't censor on, for November for poppies. We know that people have got different opinions about that. We don't censor for this charity Pride. We do things because we want to show support for these things.
Yeah.
And we sort of let people embarrass themselves if they're going to embarrass themselves. But, realistically, I think it's a missed opportunity because now, of course, we're going to, probably miss the Leicester game. Then then I've got no idea where we are.
Actually,
and so just chaos ensues.
I'll come to you in a second, Dan. But the Leicester game has actually been officially approved. So there's only a couple of games that have been called off for sure. The Man U one and the Chelsea one. The rest of them all been given the green light, not only by the FA, but Spurs have just tweeted in the last sort of hour that game is our game is on, and it's official that it's on.
So let's get this right. It's going to be 48 hours before probably the best part of 2 million people come to London. We've had to drag in police forces from all across the country to support everything that's going on around Westminster and is going to be going around in central London. And whilst it was inappropriate last weekend to say actually we should play 4 matches when the country was a bit more relaxed, in the height of what is going to be the biggest thing the city is going to have seen in probably the best since Princess Diana's funeral, we're going to start approving football matches, and people are going to start to move around the city. Have they lost their minds?
Of course they have, but I don't give a shit. I want to see Spurs play.
No, so do I. But that's so do I. And I appreciate that's not it. But it's just so it's back to front.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
And they didn't write this down. They didn't plan.
The Man U
I could
game.
understand it if they said, sorry, I could understand it if they said London games were off, but actually all the other countrywide games could happen. They could have done the same last weekend, because I know they had Chelsea, Fulham. I know there's 3 or 4 matches that were taking place in the city. They could have said, look, I'm really sorry, but we just can't handle all the logistics.
Yeah.
But it's just like they just don't. It's like they don't have a plan.
No, I mean, but I think their plan is that they've drafted most of the police from the Manchester police force down to London. But yeah,
I'm not saying the police don't have a plan. I'm saying more like the football authorities.
Oh yeah. Oh, that goes without saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's literally, it's like, what do you do when there's a come on now? It's like they just don't seem. The fans are always the last at the bottom of the list. It's just like they just don't really know what's going on.
And all the switch that just couldn't have worked, because you've got 40 odd 50,000 people who've got tickets for this game. Then how do you suddenly turn that around and say you've only 3,000 can go to the next game? And it's just not logistically possible. Dan, what's your thoughts, mate, on that game?
Is this Leicester this weekend or City?
No, the missed City game. So
the City game. Sorry. Yeah, I think that. In terms of the actual game being missed, is it good for us? I'd say a flip side to that is that, I probably wouldn't have liked to have played them at this time. I'm probably going to say, I feel like I'm going to say that at any time about Manchester City as the season goes on, because they obviously look pretty frightening right now. And they've got a guy who literally looks like he's built in a lab playing up front for them.
I'd like to have seen Romero versus him though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, definitely. But then I suppose it's what we'll come on to. I don't think Romero's fully found his feet yet this season. So, he could have dropped a clanger against City. Who knows? I mean, I'm purely speculating there, but I don't think it's the worst game in the world to get rescheduled. I think the only way it will possibly screw us is if it gets chucked into 2023 and we've got them in, not back to back, but relatively quick succession of playing them home and away. So that might work in our favour. It might work against us. At the end of the day, we've kind of got to roll with the punches on that one. I'm not too dissatisfied about us not playing that game now. I'll be honest.
No, of all the games that could have been cancelled, I'm glad it was that one personally, only because at the moment I don't think we're playing brilliantly, even though we're getting the results. So hopefully by the time we play this, maybe we will be. And looking at the calendar, a few people are saying March looks the most likely now. So by then, maybe we've clicked, and maybe we've even got a couple of players in the January window. But who knows?
Or maybe by then they'll be just off with the fairies, and it won't matter.
Yeah. Or maybe, but we'll be top of the league.
Or maybe it'll be like literally a top of the table clash.
Yeah. I like that. That's the best one, Simon.
Decider in April. That's what it's going to be. Let's put some money on it now.
Yeah. So, well, there you go. There's nothing we can do about it now. But I think que sera. So we've got Sporting coming up. How good do you think they are, Dan?
I think when we was going through the draw for the Champions League, they were the first team that I think got drawn, that we was they'd done our group and they was drawing pots for our pot, and was going, come on, be sporting, and then it was, and you're like, brilliant, literally the first team that we called for, that we wanted, we got, and then we had basically just a dream draw after that, obviously. I don't think that it's going to be the easiest fixture in the world, purely just from a travelling perspective. When you're playing away in Europe, I think we found that whether you're in the Europa League or Champions League, some of these places are just hard to go to. They're going to be hostile as you like in terms of their atmosphere. I think that, fan-wise, for people going, I think it will be probably the best of the lot trip-wise. I don't think the other two are necessarily as fancy to go to for an away day, but for us, for the players, I think that they should really have more than enough. I don't really see what Sporting are going to offer now, in the sense that they lost Paulinho to Fulham, who is their week in, week out starting midfielder. Bruno Fernandes obviously hasn't been really replaced since he's left them. So I suppose they'll have another one that we might find out about.
Marcus Edwards.
Maybe I was going to say, maybe it's Marcus Edwards. Maybe he's the danger man. But I'd like to think that, whilst he could either score or get an assist or something like that, we should have ideally enough, like, you know, to threaten them, to outscore them, if anything.
What do you know about them, Simon?
Absolutely nothing. So, so I was really enjoying. I was really enjoying listening to Dan's analysis. I thought that's really interesting stuff, and I'm going, oh god, they're going to ask me something in a minute, and I know absolutely.
Oh no, trust me, that's based off of like not knowing much more than you either. Like, that's two players I've plucked out the air, and all of a sudden I sound like I know their entire 11.
It sounded good.
Yeah.
I don't know, no, but I think I think for me that's kind of part of the fun of the Champions League, which is we get to see teams that we've never really, you know, I've heard of them because that's where Eric Dyer's, you know, that's where he came from, you know, his academy side or sort of thing, wasn't it? And but I think for me that's part of the fun of it, is just watching these teams, and then you recognise a few players and go, oh, that's where that guy went, and you just kind of, yeah, I think that's kind of where I sit with it. I just about the fun of European football is you just never know what's going to sort of happen next. I mean, I know we're not talking about the Marseille game, but you know, sitting through 75 minutes of that, and just watching their stubbornness and their tactics and their, you know, I won't call it cheating, I'll just call it amateur dramatics, let's say. You just kind of go, right, okay, so that was a pretty tough game for us to break down, and in the end, you know, we sort of got through, penetrated, and then of course, you know what you expect to happen happens, which is you then get room to maneuver and create a second opportunity. So you just kind of hope that the lessons from that experience can be taken somewhat into this experience, which is this is what European football is like for those who haven't played in it before. At this sort of level. You have a really noisy away end who don't stop for 90 minutes. There's all sorts of madness that goes on around the edges of it. You have some really flares and fights and, you know, riot police and all this sort of thing. And then you've got, you know, you potentially up against a team that recognize they're playing against an English top 4 side, and will throw every tool at the box that they've got. Every tactic
you can guarantee that,
just so that they don't concede. Certainly not away, but you know, but it's sort of don't concede at home as well, I would imagine, so that they can try and get the one up. And I think that was a great lesson to then come into the first away game for some of the players to go, oh, okay, right, okay, now I got a measure for it. Great, we won 2-0. Great, we were able to do something. But now I understand when I'm being told by the boss, this is what we're supposed to be doing. Right, now it makes sense because I've lived through the experience.
Well, I mean, Marseille was clearly they're the toughest in the group. I'm just not sure what the quality of the rest of them are like, because they've all lost key players, like you know, Dan was saying, and with Sporting, I think, well, you know, they're not going to be. Let's face it, there's not going to be any mugs. I mean, they're a favourable draw, and we should beat them, but you know, it's not like the other two competitions where at this point you're playing into your mum and FC KGB or whatever it is, you know, and we're actually playing teams that people know, so they aren't mugs. But I still fancy us to have enough to put them away. Apparently, also Paul O'Keefe has said that Son probably will be replaced by Richarlison. And Lenglet looks like or Longley, however you want to pronounce it, looks like he's getting a bit of a stay in the team. What are your thoughts on him so far, Simon?
I think he's shown to be an asset. Obviously, it's one of those players you want to see how they come about and how they perform. I think he's really kind of shown that he's settling in and bringing his experience into the side. I feel that we've talked about it before, about rotating teams and bringing players in that we've just acquired, and how you get them into the squad and show them respect, because it's all very well bringing players on and going, but actually what you're going to be playing is, you know, EFL Cup games. You're going to be going, that's not really what I signed up for. So I think that's great. And I think that's the whole point of having a system and a squad where you've got double, you know, you've got cover, so that you can literally have 2 first teams and you can rotate them through significant games. And that's what we've seen City and Liverpool have, where their bench is as strong as, you know, their starting squad.